Hey everyone, Lynn and Joseph with Saltmarsh Properties here, and we're just here to bring you some more, hopefully informative information on what's going on in the greater Charleston area, specifically real estate in Charleston. So one of the topics is that a lot of people are talking about right now is homes that are not selling. So we just wanted to cover that topic right now because homes that are not selling where people anticipated that to happen, it can be kind of disappointing, right? And frustrating. So we wanted to kind of give you some information if you're thinking about putting your home on the market, right? So you don't create this frustration, right? Because a lot of people will go on the market with some strategic and what they feel is solid information, and they just didn't get the activity they wanted.
Yeah, and so what often happens is sellers immediately start to assume the worst, and they wonder, oh gosh, are buyers seeing something wrong with their property that I might have missed or the agent might have missed? And in reality, that usually isn't the case. What's typically happening is that the market is responding to a mismatch between some of the following: presentation, pricing, exposure, or strategy.
Exactly. And the good news is about that is all of those are solvable problems, right? If you diagnose them correctly, which is a super important part of the equation.
Yeah, so we always say Charleston is still a strong market, and we have lots of videos on this YouTube channel where we're touching on so many different aspects of like real estate strategy from either a buyer or seller's perspective, but we still say it's a strong market. It's just becoming a much more analytical market and skills based. Buyers are more selective. They're actually comparing options more carefully, and they're slower to act unless something says to them, jump on this now because it's a good deal and it'll be gone soon. So today we're going to walk through the 4 biggest reasons homes are not selling, and then what you can do to help correct that course quickly.
100%. First and foremost, no surprise if you've watched any of our videos, is going to be pricing, right? I mean, this is where a lot of sellers really, understandably, they get confused because they put their home on the market and they feel that they priced their home correctly. We priced it where the comp suggested. Sometimes that's true, but pricing isn't just about historical value. It's also just as important about where you're positioned against your competition. So the difference between pricing your home based on homes that sold 2, 3, 4 months ago is buyers aren't really looking at that right now. They're comparing it to what their other options are, which is really, really important.
Yeah, so it is confusing because you get advice from agents to think about what an appraiser might determine, which are a few months back, right? But this distinction between past and now is really, really important. And the good news is the market's always changing, and the bad news is the market's always changing, because they're not evaluating your home in isolation. They're evaluating it against every active option they can see online, typically in Charleston, often within the same area, school district. Sometimes it causes them to look elsewhere because what they're asking is, if I'm going to spend this amount, what are my alternatives? And if your home doesn't feel like the strongest answer to that question, they hesitate.
Yeah, and one big factor in that too is if you have any new construction in your neighborhood, buyers are going to see, what could I get for that exact same floor plan and have it be brand new. So you're going to want to know that information as well. And when Lynn mentioned they hesitate, right? The problem with hesitation is that's where listings lose their momentum, right? Studies will say the first 2 weeks and up to maybe 30 days is when the listing gets the most activities. That's when the people are the most curious. They're watching what you're doing. They're deciding whether or not your home is a serious contender. So if pricing causes any sort of hesitation for buyers during that, you really lose energy very quickly.
And as we know, once a property lingers, even buyers begin interpreting that as information, and they assume the market knows something that they don't, even if the home is beautiful and there's nothing wrong with it. And that's why pricing adjustments should never be emotional reactions. They need to be strategic recalibrations. And we don't love price adjustments, but when you do have to consider one, you come from strategy.
Yep, 100%.
Oh, so the second reason that buyers aren't experiencing the home's full value, that's another issue as well. And the sellers often underestimate how important presentation is, because buyers don't simply purchase square footage or bedroom count, they purchase potential. They purchase how a home feels. And that emotional connection often begins online before they've ever come through the front door. And we have a video that talks about staging. You're not trying to get on a magazine cover, but you are trying to get people in the door.
Yeah, I mean, especially here in Charleston, people are often buying into a lifestyle as much as they are buying the house. They're imagining their mornings on the front porch, the natural light that comes into the home, entertaining friends, how close they are to water, things that they're interested in, the architectural character of it. They're really looking at everything. And that's what creates an emotional pull, right? Logic makes people think, emotion makes them act. And part of that strategy is to do that. If your presentation doesn't communicate that experience, buyers will move on before they've even scheduled a showing. And that can be frustrating because you feel like you're not getting feedback because people aren't even showing up.
And this does not necessarily mean that your home needs major updates. That's a common misconception. Sometimes the issue is just a lot more subtle. Like he just went through all of that. You know, lighting. Does the furniture actually crowd a room, or are you highlighting what the things of that room that are really special, like windows or high ceilings? Is there visual clutter? It could also be that the photography is kind of mismatched from what the photo looks like versus when you walk into the house.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we walk in a home that feels fantastic in person, but online, the presentation you never would have known. And so those people never go see it, right? And that in today's market, that online experience doesn't stop the buyers when they're in their steps, then you've missed the opportunity.
So reason 3, exposure is not the same as strategic marketing. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings in residential real estate. A lot of people assume that once a property is in the MLS, it's fully marketed and that's exposure. And it isn't necessarily strategy.
No, and in Charleston, strategy matters, like we said, because buyers are motivated. Is very, like, their motivation is very diverse here, right? You're often speaking to multiple types of buyers. You may have local buyers that are moving up, relocation clients that are coming in from a completely different markets, either really high cost markets or the other way around, right? Military families are transitioning, they're moving quickly. Buyers are looking for second homes, lifestyle driven buyers who are choosing Charleston for just the different and very specific vision of life. Those audiences don't respond to the same messaging, and you have to make sure strategically you're working across the board.
And you can't overthink how I'm going to attract all of the audiences. But like we've been saying, you need to determine a couple of those that you're going to go after, because that's who most likely will buy the home. So a strong marketing strategy identifies why this home matters to those audiences, and that requires intentional storytelling, you know, targeting in digital placement. It requires agent-to-agent communication, and we're really big on that. It requires knowing how buyers in this market actually think.
And when that's missing, the homes become invisible, right? And they never even schedule the showing. And it's not because the buyers wouldn't have loved that home. They just, no one has clearly shown them why they should care about it.
Right. And then the last reason is the market has changed, but your strategy may not have. And this may be the most important point. Charleston remains incredibly desirable. And that has not changed. What has changed is buyer psychology in Charleston.
A few years ago, urgency drove everything. People just were buying a house to make sure they didn't miss out on it, right? And they moved fast because they were just limited opportunities. Their environment allowed weaker strategy and still being able to purchase the home with strong or produce strong results. And that's what we're all getting used to now, right? Especially as listing agents. So there's no longer the case, and you've got to be more strategic.
Yeah, like we talk about how we have longer days on market, and we try to encourage sellers, don't freak out about that. That is the new market. That is the market we're in. That's actually the normal thing now. But if it's on the market longer, we need to be strategic. So why? Buyers are more measured. They're more data conscious. They expect stronger alignment between price, condition, and value. And that means that sellers are going to need a lot more precision and get it right the first time.
Yeah, and sometimes that may mean if you know, we've had this happen. A home goes on a market, it's not happening. It may mean a full relaunch of that, right? And not just reducing the price and hoping, really like a reboot almost of the entire situation. You reassess your positioning, you redefine your presentation, updating your media, introducing maybe more thoughtfully walkthroughs or whatever it may be. You want to create fresh momentum from this. You want to do that from the beginning. And in the event you missed it, this is something that, if done correctly, that changes how buyers perceive the opportunity.
Yeah, so what's important to remember is if your home isn't selling, that doesn't automatically mean something is wrong with the property. That's the approach we take with all the homes in Charleston. It just means that the market is giving you feedback, and now it's your opportunity to respond to that feedback, but without emotion. Try to do it with logic, and try to do it with strategy and precise positioning. So that's kind of a good kind of overview of that. And so like we said, there are so many different videos that we have that touch on a lot of this: staging, price reductions, what to expect when you are putting it on the market, and then if you have to take it off. So at the end of the day, this is what our YouTube channel is all about: giving you information
100%.
and having a conversation. And we would love to be any sort of resource for you if you find yourself in that place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're thinking of putting your home on the market and you'd like some more information on it, we'd love to talk to you more about it. Just reach out and let us know.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, Lynn and Joseph with Saltmarsh.